down in Texas. They did some good work for me a few years ago. Wire harness on my old 2012 Freightliner Cascadia. So when I was there, I picked up this hat. So that was pretty cool. So, in this video, we'll talk about 4 stages of team development. And you may think, well, as an owner operator, I mean, you're a one man operation. What are you talking about? Team? There's no team. There's no I in team. Well, I mean, there's plenty of examples where, you know, you're either part of a team or you're leading a team. And, it would be beneficial for you as a business leader and an owner to understand, the characteristics of how teams work. It's kind of cliche that people say all the time. You're a good team member. You're not typically it's not positive. It's negative. You're not a good team member. You're not a team player. I've heard that before, and I was like, well, I was thinking the same thing about you. You're not a team player. Um, I often talk to business leaders, and I tried to explain this to them, and they're like, look, we don't really care about stage 1, 2, or 3. We want to get straight to stage 4, performance. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but that's not how this works. Just because you're a business leader, that doesn't change human nature. If you're gonna employ people, not robots, and you're gonna form teams, then all teams will go through similar stages of development. And it doesn't matter, where in the world you are, these dynamics are consistently the same. This is how it works. This is how teamwork works. All right, so let's go through this. Stage 1, you're going to form a team. It could be as little as 2 people. It could be 10 people. It could be 100 people. The size really doesn't matter. But it could typically, it's going to be a small team, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. That you're going to form a team, form a task or a function, or try to achieve a goal through your collective efforts. So you're going to form a team. Okay. So now the team is going to go through a stage that they call storming. This is where, you brought all these strangers together. They have to get to know one another. Just because you said you, and you're going to form a team. Now get to it. It's like, okay, but before they get to it, before they start working, they got to figure out, who's going to do what, who's in charge, who has the authority, who's responsible, who has the expertise. Just you assembled a group of people that never worked before, that never worked together before. And so now they have to go through this stage of team development where they got to figure this out. So hello people, I'm seeing your comments. I can read it now. So it's not instantaneous. Teamwork and success are not guaranteed. Because you could throw 5 people that you like that are great people. You can throw them together, and these people cannot function as a team. It's just not going to happen. It's like I don't understand why. I like all of them, but they just can't work together. So you form a team, and this team has to go through a stage of disruption. It's kind of like a stage of conflict, and that's why they call it a storming stage. It's chaos. It's like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what to do. And nobody can make a decision. So after that stage comes the normalizing stage. Stage 3 is normalizing. Normalizing means now the group is starting to figure things out. They're like, okay, well, since this guy is an expert, in our case, maybe he's a mechanic, we'll make him in charge. So, oftentimes the leader of a team or a group is the one who has the most expertise. It's not necessarily the oldest person, although it could be. It's not always the one that is the wealthiest or the smartest or any of that. The group will decide who the leader should be. It's like, look, we got a mechanical problem here we got to fix, and this guy's a mechanic. So I say we listen to him. We follow this guy. We make him our team leader. And then as a team leader, he will decide who does what. He'll say, all right, I need you to hold the flashlight. I need you to go run and get the parts. I need you to, read the instructions to me, and I'm going to tell this guy, how to do it. He's my trainee, something like that. So everyone's got a role. You do this, you do that, you do this. This guy's going to do that. All right, everyone's on the same page. Agreed? Everyone understands what's going on. Everybody knows who's in charge. It's like we got this all figured out. All right, so that's the normalizing stage. That was stage 3. And then stage 4 of team development is the performance aspect of it. It's like, okay, this work is getting done. This is great. The team is really functioning, smoothly. Everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. No one's confused about who does what or when it's supposed to happen or how it's supposed to happen. The team is performing and the task is being completed. It's like, great, this is what we want. So there's 4 stages of team development. There's forming, storming, norming, and performing. Does it always work? No. And it's like, well, if it doesn't work, why isn't it working? It's like, well, we're stuck in stage 2, conflict. We cannot agree on anything. And this happens, as a business owner, as a business leader. You see this all the time. You're trying to form a team. And let me give you a situation and put it in context. Okay. You are, you own a truck. The truck breaks down. All right. Can you fix the truck on your own? No. You're going to have to hire a mechanic, so, you call for a mobile mechanic to come out and help you with the breakdown side of the road. All right. And then you got to call your company and let them know you broke down, because they got to call their customer and say, hey, there's going to be a delay. The truck broke down. It's like, okay. And then maybe you got to pay for it. So you got to get money from your required maintenance account, for example. You got to get authorization for that. So here in this situation, it's very clear that you're the team leader, because you're the small business owner. You're the one that's got to make this happen. So it's like, you got to contact your carrier and you tell them you broke down. You got to contact maintenance. You got to contact, the people who authorize your money. You got to hire a mechanic. So you've got 4 or 5 people involved in this process. Now, everybody is trying to work together on this breakdown, because what is our goal? Our goal is get the truck repaired, get back on the road, deliver the product on time, if possible. So you got to provide that leadership. You got to be that team leader. So when the mechanic arrives, you're not going to tell the mechanic what to do. You hired him to do the job. So now the roles shift, right? You're no longer in charge. You're not in charge of the repair. So you hired the mechanic to do the repair for you. So now the mechanic is in charge of the repair. So what's your job? Your job is to hold the flashlight. So now you're no longer the team leader. Now you got to be a team player. So you're gonna hold the flashlight, and he says, well, I need this tool from my truck. You're like, that's okay, I'll go get it. So you run over there and you grab that wrench and you bring it back to him. And you're working together. He's providing the expertise, and you're there to assist. Your role has changed from team leader to team player. But this happens all the time. When you look at high performance teams, people will change roles periodically based on the needs of the situation. So sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're just a team player. And this goes back and forth, back and forth. All right, so a lot of times when you're dealing with people with a skilled trade or an expertise, they will be providing leadership. You need to pay the bill. You need to provide the authorization. So let's see here. All right. So when we talk about high performance teams, you don't always have to be in charge. You don't have to provide leadership at all the time. Even as a small business owner, I often will take a step back, because I'm relying on other service providers to do something for me. And sometimes I need to get out of the way. It's just like, you know what? I'm going back to hotel room. You guys, I brought the truck to the shop. The service manager is going to be the team leader. He's going to be telling the mechanic what to do. He's going to be telling the parts department what to do. And then he's going to contact me when the job is done. So obviously in that situation, it is the service manager who is the leader, the team leader on that repair. And then, as a business owner, you just need to get out of the way and let them do the work. So it's interesting when you look at teamwork, because you have these different stages: forming, storming, norming, and performing. And if you're familiar with the team development process, when a team is dysfunctional, because there's conflict. There's going to be, just people banging heads, and you could see it because you understand how team development works. You're like, I can see right now this job ain't going to get done because these people can't work together. Why can't they work together? Is because they have personality conflicts, they have hidden agendas, they don't trust one another, they don't like each other. There's probably money involved. There's a whole host of reasons why people can't work together. Some people insist on being in charge, but they have no expertise to justify why they need to be the team leader. They just, psychologically, they have to feel like they're in charge. But they have other people who are experts and they have zero leadership skills. They're just like, they'll do the work, but they don't want to be in charge. So there's a lot of dynamics that goes on in teamwork. And just because you bring people together to perform a task or function doesn't mean that it's going to be accomplished, because they cannot function as a team. For whatever reason, they can't function as a team. Now, as a business owner, if you recognize that, players aren't, contributing or aren't, performing, you're going to have to step in and provide that clarity, provide that leadership, because there should be no confusion. It's like sometimes, these subject matter experts, they start trying to push you around or try to tell you what to do, and it's like, well, let me help you out here, okay? I'm the one paying the bill. We'll simplify this real fast. So before you go off and start doing all these changes, just remember, I have to see it first. So we're making the expectations perfectly clear. What we want from each contributing member of the team, so there's no confusion. If there's confusion, you're not doing your job as a team leader. So if you're going to lead that team, you got to provide clarity. And there should be no question in anyone's mind who the team leader is. You may delegate that. You may hire someone, and just provide oversight. That's perfectly fine. But if there's any confusion, you're going to have to step in and clarify roles. You're going to have to clarify, whose job is to do this, or who's supposed to be doing that. So you can't always neglect your role as a business owner. A lot of times the drivers, we have teamwork on the road, right? We come up onto a construction site, and the highway is going from 3 lanes down to 1 lane, and all the four-wheelers are cutting in front of you. What do the truck drivers do? They start working together. They start playing. They start becoming team players. So one truck will be in the right lane, another truck will grab the middle lane, and the third truck will grab the far left lane. And then we'll let each other in as needed. But all them four-wheelers are staying behind us. That's teamwork. That works great. What happens when you don't have teamwork? other truck drivers won't let you, won't let you in. They'll let you hanging out to dry. So there are instances of lack of teamwork. Where are other instances of teamwork? When a mechanic comes out to work on your truck and you just sit in your truck, you're not willing to help in any way, shape, or form. How about the guy who's changing your tires? Are you out there, holding the, the sockets for him when he's trying to crank down on that lever to check the torque? Are you being helpful? Are you helping him gather up his hoses and whatever warning devices he set out? Or are you just sitting in your truck? There's many examples of teamwork. So I wanted to just bring that to everyone's attention that, if you're looking the way to improve your business, how do you make it a smoother operation? Think about, how do you utilize teamwork to your advantage? And recognize these four stages: forming, storming, norming, performing. And if you're not getting performance, try to see where it's breaking down. Why aren't we getting performance? When I put in a work order at terminal and the service manager says, well, we can't get to your truck till tomorrow because we don't have the part. Well, guess what I do? I'll go get the part. I'm like, I got my personal vehicle right here. I'll run up the Freightliner, I'll grab the part, and then they'll put it on that night. That's an example of teamwork. But sometimes you gotta be the player. You can't be the team leader. So if you understand how teams work, then that's going to be to your benefit as a business owner. You'll be able to step in as needed, provide leadership as needed, provide clarity as needed, and be a team player when it's needed. There's many times I let someone else provide leadership. It's like, look, that I have full faith and confidence in them. Let them lead for a little while. I'll fall back and let someone else take the lead. But if there's a problem, then I won't hesitate to step up and provide that leadership for you. Generally, if there's a problem, you're not going to like it because I'm just going to make it perfectly clear in black and white terms. What the deal is. You either take it or leave it. So I don't have too many problems. And those team players that don't want to be team players no longer on the team. So you'll have to decide that too as a team leader. Who's on your team and who's not. It's like, well, I can tell you right now this ain't gonna work, so I'm gonna find someone else who will. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.